Shall we invite Justin up or a representative? We have some questions.
Okay, Justin Shin, here to answer questions. We can call on anyone else in our team that we need to
Okay.
answer those questions if necessary.
The floor is open.
Okay. I've got a few questions. What's the average pay per employee for the 10 new employees?
The average pay of the employees in your business for the new like hospitality folks.
Hospitality, yeah, it's usually like between 19 and 21 an hour.
How will the county enforce and monitor the TOT tax?
Well, I think it's probably pretty, I know there's problems with, let's say, Airbnbs, the way like Airbnb reports a tax and sends it to you, which that should be fixed as a resident account. I'd like to see that done much better. No one should get away without paying tax. So in this case, they have a business that has to keep books. Now this, I don't know how you all require this exactly, but I know in Charlottesville, one of my businesses, they can require me to turn over a state, my tax return that says, here's like my tools, for example. That'd be really quite a question for you all and the treasurer. I mean, you probably could condition something to that effect on it, but they are not here to not pay their required tax. We talked about that, and that's an item they're aware of.
That's Commissioner Revenue.
Commissioner Revenue.
Yeah, Commissioner Revenue, and I think likely they're utilizing, obviously, all direct bookings, so that tax would have to be reported to the Commissioner Revenue. Who would then, they would remit a check once a month for them.
Okay.
So Commissioner Revenue should be enforcing that.
Will you waive any tax exemptions in the future?
Yes, Monroe's prepared to do that. They have never been a religious organization and will never be.
Okay. What you put up here on the board a while ago, for paying $140,000 a year in property tax. Will y'all commit to that as a minimum baseline, regardless of what the reassessment comes in at?
I don't know if that's possible in a zoning case. So I think that's going to be proportional. Like I think probably, so I'm not an expert exactly, but folks can chime in, but the state law basically outlines the process of assessments, how you all can charge the taxes and how they're collected. I don't know that we can agree to pay, like to replace that. Certainly you all have control over the lodging tax, which could be adjusted upwards if the board wished to. But I don't know about the property tax.
Let's see here. When you did the balloon test, could you see any houses?
Well, you can see from the site, you can't see any houses. The concern we had was Miss Hicks' residence, which is it's adjacent. Houses. We flew a balloon test, and you could see. So the balloon was flown at the bottom of the balloon was 28 feet, which is the top of the roof. You could see the balloon on the center of the building and down about maybe 8 feet. So based on that, you would see a peak of the roof, the trees. But the lights from the site lights and any doors where people are moving around would be out of sight from the house due to the topography.
Would you be willing to increase the berm a little so she's not able to? You said you're able to see 8 feet.
Yeah, and that's a big berm
Sure.
to make it, let's say, 11 feet tall.
Or taller evergreens, taller
Right.
screening.
I think we can plant taller trees a lot easier. We offer to plant 5-foot trees. The one thing we could do with this is we'd be happy to commit to doing that within the first year. So, for example, a condition would be, if the building will take a couple of years to get built, it's not going to happen tomorrow. But we could say, we'll plant the trees at 5-foot height within 12 months of the SUP approval. They have 2 years to grow that way before we actually open the business, basically. That's something we could definitely do. We can make them 6 feet tall. There is if you plant a tree that's 8 feet tall, its growth gets a little stunted, right? Smaller trees grow faster over time. So we try to strike a balance of that, but we'll do whatever's reasonable to try to screen that view.
This is where I wish the county attorney was here. Candy or Dylan, do we have the ability to attach the SUP to the property owner instead of the property?
No.
We do not. And one more question. Does Monroe Institute vet their customers as far as making sure they're not registered sex offenders or created aggravated crimes in the past? As far as murders or anything like that?
We have an application process, we're not looking for criminal records.
Would you? So I kind of, the one gentleman was up here, yeah, if I had kids there, I don't want, registered sex offenders from Guatemala on my street. I get that. Having children of my own. I mean, is that something that we would commit to?
It would be hard for me to commit to that right now without understanding privacy laws and things like that, with, coming to a retreat. But if it's within reason, something we would certainly be willing to pursue.
I think there probably is a standard, there are basically industry standard sort of background checks that could be performed on folks that would, I think, I have rent apartments that I rent, right?
Sure.
We have a similar process, like, without knowing the details of somebody, you might be to say, vet in or out based on that. I don't know if it's something, we might be hard pressed to work that detail out tonight without some other, input.
But also, we are a retreat center, we're not. So I'd have to understand more the implications of those kind of invadings of privacy, so that we're not overreaching. And I don't know about, I don't even know what other retreat centers that do that. It's not an industry standard, it's happening.
I know I run background checks for my company. I'm not hiring.
Well, we
Murders.
We hire people, we run background checks.
Right.
So we do that for the people
Yeah.
we hire.
Yeah.
We don't do it for our guests.
How can we get over this hurdle? Because that one is a hurdle.
Well, I don't know if, that is a county attorney question of if that's even allowed to be put as a condition. I don't remember that in our class. Do you, Ernie?
Well, we talked about budget. Land use is coming up.
Yeah.
We
Wanna
haven't
wait on
done-
this vote?
Haven't done land use yet, but
That's
my take on this is that this is a land use decision.
Yeah.
And to put restrictions on something in terms of land use is really relevant, but to do it in terms of revenue, budget, and then you're dealing in the world of proffers, which is not something we are even able to do. If there were going to be any proffers, they would be on you to bring them to us. But I do have some questions about that are of a land use nature that I'd like to
I'm
ask.
done. I've asked all my questions.
Okay. I really only have one, and that is that first of all, comments tonight were absolutely impeccable in every way it could have possibly been, and I just thank everybody for chiming in and however they felt it was important for them to do so. But one of the comments that I had received had to do with the comprehensive plan, protecting viable resources, natural environment, rural heritage, and character. Element 20, which is the proposed site is situated on a prominent ridgeline which goes directly against the plan to discourage ridgeline development to protect scenic viewsheds. So I'm wondering, even though you did your balloon test to sites on property, did you look at the sight lines from the balloon test from other adjacent properties to see how it's going to be viewed in places like Berry Hill, like Adile, like further up on Rocky Road, and places like that.
Well, we don't necessarily need to do the balloon test for that because we have at a high level, and you see it in our models there that we show the 3D models. We pull some of those up, like a 3D, essentially a terrain model of everything around. And you can see when you stay on that site, you certainly see Wintergreen. You're looking up at the condos at Wintergreen. Are they going to see us? Absolutely. We're going to see them. You know, they're a whole bunch up there at the very top of the mountain. The only other place you can really see from that's about there is somebody who has cleared a mountaintop and is building a house over, I guess, off Berry Hill. I think they would have some visibility, but I think, you know, when you look at if you're choosing to build a house up on top of a mountain, you're choosing to view things. And I think our building being its height relative, you know, it's a story on one side, it's 2 stories on the side. We have a wood line between us and the road. From somebody's house on top of a mountain, I think you'll see us, but I don't know that would be different from thousands of feet away. Would that be dressed different? I would not call us a prominent ridge line. To me, is something that lots of folks can see from a distance. I don't think that because the way the trees are, the terrain, from anywhere around down that valley, you can look up and see our building, because the building sits at a slope that you're looking up over top of, basically.
So the answer to my question then is a qualified no.
The answer is we've not looked at balloons from other places around. We don't believe we can
You only
see
looked at places that were on the
on
parcels.
adjacent properties. That's right. That is
That was my question. Thank you.
I got questions for staff, but.
No questions. This is not going to come to as a surprise because I have sat through, this will be the 3rd or 4th meeting on this one, is the walking paths. I don't love thinking about 90 people walking on a road in a community. I want you to give them a place in nature on that property off the road for them to walk. It just makes me feel good about it. And it's still, that plan hadn't really matriculated. It was talked about at one point. But I think it's a distraction to drivers. I think it's not safe. And when you get to this number of people, some sort of plan for them to walk, if that's the type of people we're attracting, needs to happen. So this is about the 3rd time I've said it, so.
Yeah, I think, so part of the challenge there is that the remaining of the property is not part of the special use permit. So certainly we've said that we'll have trails on our parcels. If you look at our original map in purple there. I don't know, is there a trail to Roberts Mountain Retreat, not the road?
No.
So there's an issue they were trying to get folks there, you know, not wise. I don't have a sense of how, you know, often, you know, folks are walking, a sense of how much traffic. I don't think it's a very high traffic road, but I don't have a good sense of that. So to the extent it's within our control, we can get people off the road. I don't know that it's necessary to prevent someone from walking to Roberts Mountain Retreat if you can get them off the road 80% of the way or something like that. But I don't know, I would need a map to give you a better answer on that.
It's an arduous walk, so very few will make that, the young ones.
Fair. Did anybody have any other questions, comments?
Not to that, at this time, but to staff.
Okay.
Well, I'd like to make a couple clarifying
Okay.
points to make, if I could. So one is that the building size has been talked about a lot as imposing, right? And I think, if we can pull up the slides back, that may help. But I think that's sort of misunderstanding the purposeness of the design. Now, the original, so for a year or more, the Institute was working with Kevin on the architect on the place of the building, and they really seized on the original location, which is in the field, as you come past the current institute. So if we go to our overall map. There we go, yeah. So the original site is in 33-3-2D. And I will say, the first time I backed over this project, I was like, wow, this is beautiful. I can totally see why that was picked as the original site. And that is a site that folks, I think everyone who drives in there says, oh, this is why we live here, is this view, it's beautiful. And I think it was well said by the first folks who spoke, I think the first speaker, like that beautiful setting exists because Monroe dreamed it that way, right? I think in some ways, the interesting thing here is the established character of the neighborhood is Monroe, and that Monroe made it fantastic with the intentional design, what they did. So the building was moved out of that area over to the 3412-2 parcel, which if we go back to the next control here, I think. So this building is tucked, you'll see the tree, so that the Roberts Mountain Road routes behind it. So the building is tucked there. So if you were to drive the road, if you look hard to your left, the trees, you can see it. When you go on past it, unless you look over to your left, you're not gonna see it. Now, when you leave the neighborhood, you will see it. You will sort of look at this view when you leave. It's one story of the building. And it is, look, it's a large building, but in the context of 350 acres, it's not that large. And you only see the one floor from the side. So I think that I know folks here a 60,000 square foot building. We're open to some, maybe a condition that made a little smaller that makes the folks feel more comfortable. But you're not seeing that much of it. You're seeing a one-story building from a distance. You're driving past this. You're probably 200 or 300 feet from it, looking at it, and you drive past. And that's its visibility. And so the idea that like the mass of the building itself would change the character of the neighborhood drastically would be true if it was in the spot originally cited. But this is not in the same spot. So I think that folks, and it's fair to hear 60,000 square feet, like, wow, that's a lot. But that's over 2 stories. One of them is halfway in the ground. And so I really think that's an important consideration here. The Planning Commission reviewed this at great length. Dr. Liggin can testify, and ended up voting 3-1 that it met the comprehensive planning criteria. Planning director reviewed it and found the same thing. There's certainly areas in the comprehensive plan where reasonable people could disagree. But at the same time, there's a number of guiding principles that Planning Commission staff and us too feel outweigh that. There's a specific provision to help expansion of existing businesses, even in the rural areas, right? And so those are important things to take consideration as we look at this.
Can you pull up page 19 in the packet? It's the
19 here.
yeah, it's page 19.
We need a packet. This is my slide presentation.
Okay.
You all would have that, I think.
Okay. It's the one where it shows the 2-story building on the ridge top. From Design Develop.
Let me see. I have some photos in the back. Let me see what I've got here before we flip to that. So that's the view of it.
That's from the air.
From the
yeah.
air,
Right.
right, so that's-
No, that's not it. There, that's the one.
Yeah.
I just wanted to note that for someone like myself that that drives along Rainbow Ridge and Roberts Mountain Road many times a day, that the renditions that are put in here, especially those that show the road coming in where the entrance is proposed, are, not at all the way that it look. I mean, they're similar, they're close. I think they're done to the advantage of the developer and not to the observer. But I just wanted to note that in this one, if this is accurate, it definitely shows the building being on a ridgetop. And I think I could be wrong because of the scale, but it certainly appears that way. And I just wanted to make note of that, and with reference to my previous question.
Well, then, no other questions. The last, I think, point I'd make is that there is, go back to some other views we have. Let's see anything else that's that useful in there to look at. Here's our end slide, basically view from above also. So from a standpoint of the county, we're looking at a situation, and it's true that, it's a zoning action. It's not a specific business action to Monroe, but there is a crossover in that because every business that tries to come and start something new that goes this process, you're in part doing it for that business. And that can't be avoided as part of this. You have to take into account the sort of what ifs, right? And that's what the conditions of special use permit are for. But I hearken back to tax revenues from this and the traffic impacts. And the comparison is, and let's say, for example, my numbers are high. I say they're twice as high. It still would mitigate the increase in taxes in the upcoming budget on the $300,000 house on 700 houses. So you could say to 700 people, we don't need to raise your property tax. As one business, half the estimates I've prepared, comes in and contributes that to the local economy. Every development that contributes something to the local economy is going to have some sort of impact on somebody. That is not avoidable. Somebody's going to come in and there's going to either cut a tree down, they're going to change a view, they're going to add traffic. But that's a necessary part of some kind of growth that's sustainable from the business side of things. So, businesses that, unless you want to welcome in data centers that, have no one coming to and from, right? There's going to be tourism. It's going to have people coming to and from. This is a very low traffic tourist use with a very high tax revenue. Does it change a little bit maybe of how things are? I would contend that Monroe is the character of the neighborhood, has been since 1971, and should continue that way. It's a beautiful neighborhood because they exist, I believe. And this is simply a continuation of that. And I think the conditions put forward, special use permit, protect the downsides of this sort of thing while giving the county the upside of the business in our community.
All right, Jesse, what were your questions?
My questions were directed to Ms. Bishop. First and foremost, I want to thank, of course, everyone being here. I learned a new word today, bucolic. We'll try to put that in my day-to-day vocabulary. So thank you guys for the emails to use that word. First and second most, I guess, we take these situations very seriously. I've heard from many of you, and of course, as I've indicated, I listen to when we get to this point, and of course, I've heard what you guys have to say, and I usually like to try to understand a little bit of what the use is. Of course, I've known the Monroe Institute. I would say, man, I definitely want this in Livingston. We actually have the Monroe Institute in Livingston, so proud neighbors to have over here. But I want to speak to a few different things to staff on kind of understanding the structure, its size, and just a couple other pieces. So the Monroe Institute was built and currently is in use as a non-conforming use to date, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Second, as it relates to square footage, I know some things change related to IRC, IVC. I believe this will be built to the internet IVC code, not the IRC. So there will be a potential of this having fire suppression. I don't know if they would know that yet, or they'd have to get through the process and find out any of the water retention piece. But as it relates to, this is in zone agriculture, correct?
Correct.
And currently in Nelson County's building code, or Nelson County's zoning code, we don't have a square footage limitation to agriculture use buildings or whatever use of a building that is allowed in A1, correct?
Correct.
So if a person wanted to go, and I say that because in Nelson County, there are actually a lot of structures getting built in the tens of thousands of square feet. And I think there's some that we've seen down in the Roseland area and on the mountains. But so we have that. When it comes to A1, we of course already have some level of expectation of how many people can visit. There are some conditions, and I think it would be great if we could go to the condition slide to what they're not necessarily, I guess, proffering away, but what they are not bringing into it. Can you go to that slide? And I did notice, I think you had a couple additions to that, shows earlier. Okay. Would they be allowed the typical ag event use, or is that being removed?
So condition 7 specifies weddings, festivals, and concerts are not permitted. The way I would read this is agritourism would not fall.
Agritourism, we're not following that. And currently in our zoning, agritourism allows for how many person events?
It just depends on the scale. If we get into impacting health, safety, welfare,
Sure.
there's kind of a determination
Sure.
that needs to be made.
But from a typical ag, tourist business, which Woodbridge is probably one of my favorite references to what agritourism looks like, and he might try to build the 40,000 square foot buildings at some point, but that particular area, there's no limitation for him, for his patrons to be able to participate on his grounds on day-to-day operations.
That's correct.
Okay. We do have the dark sky and then the directional piece to this. Other questions that I had. When it comes to, and this is something kind of in the, Monroe Institute is a nonprofit. And it's a nonprofit that is required, and a nonprofit, and this is probably a joint question with Dylan and Candy. The nonprofits, can they seek exemption from the TOT, transient occupancy tax? Or is that something, and no matter what case, they have to pay the transient occupancy tax? The reason why I say that is if there is a way for us to make sure that that's something that they can't back away from paying transient occupancy tax. I don't know. I don't know if that was a question in the planning commission side either.
We can add that in the SUP.
SUP
It
conditions
has to be related to the land use.
have to address
Yeah,
or mitigate an impact of the project. So
Right.
like cash proffers, things
Right.
like that would not be
sure.
allowed.
Okay. Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. Yes, we can't really. And in the A1 zoning, it obviously, I believe, religious institutions have the ability to build structures, and we don't necessarily have limitations in square footage for a religious facility, correct?
Correct.
And same thing with capacity. Well, I'm sure there's a building code that may get triggered on some level of capacity, but in terms of like how much they congregate or whatever that may be, there's no limitation.
Overall, in the zoning ordinance, there's currently no lot coverage limitations.
Gotcha.
Wasn't a limitations on the number of people talked about at the planning commission meeting?
Could have been.
They talked about limiting numbers.
So, yeah, just to be very clear, our application is just for 90 total, which is in the application on the plan. Maybe it needs to be here also.
Okay.
But certainly, yeah, a religious assembly, you could have a church and have 200 people there, that's fine. But we would be limited to the occupancy of the 90. That's what we applied for, and I think it would be clear that, when the board approves, if the board approves special use permit, that application says that, but in the abundance of caution, it probably should be added as a condition.
I agree.
I think if there is a motion that would be added as a condition. Dylan, if you could, I don't know what that would look like. Other questions for Dylan?
Just quickly on that note, you can also limit, the square footage, the height, things like that.
Okay. I heard 50,000, I heard 60,000 square feet.
So the larger number is the floor area of the structure.
Okay.
The footprint is closer to 33,000 approximately.
Okay,
So that's both floors.
sure. And then essentially 50% of this is relatively below ground or something of that nature. Ish. Okay.
Walk out.
I don't have any other questions at this moment.
As long as it's in that SUP where they waive any tax exemptions, whether it be real estate or TOT. And if it falls through, it's not able to become a brewery. I know it's a lot.
Well, and limiting the number of people.
That's it.
Still want a walking path.
I think with the discussion of how many potential new conditions are being discussed, if the board wants to delay a vote on this while additional conditions are developed, that's one option.
What's the pleasure of the board?
I mean, I can be open to allowing a delayed vote to resolve some of those conditions, if that is something that this board wants to do. Or we could take action today. I mean, if Cameron has something that, or Ernie or David have something that they really wanna tighten in on.
Well, I have a lot of things that I would like to say, highlighting some things that the public mentioned and some things in addition to this. However, if we want to postpone the decision on this, since it might be to everyone's benefit not to have to hear everything over again and have me say it, although I would make reference to the people that had said it before. But the issues I have to do with land use primarily. I'd like to try to flush them out a little bit more. I would just ask that if we do table this for tonight, that we make sure that we only take action on this as an agenda item that is set up ahead of time so that the public would be aware that that a decision is going to be made at that time. We're going to have quite a few meetings between now and our next Board of Supervisor meetings where, in theory, the board could take action unless we decided to make sure that it was on an agenda item at a regularly scheduled board meeting. Because I would not mind revisiting this again.
You've been heard. Though, so I see your first thing is water, and he has a hydraulic, or I'm sorry, I don't really know your true name of your geologist. So is there things that you need for clarity from this lovely gentleman?
No, I did the math. Mr. Matusik Snyder did the math about water consumption, which the hydrologist did not address, nor did the engineer's presentation. The number of people that currently reside at new land is very comparable to the number of people that would be both in attendance and staffing the proposal. They're basically the same. And the number of gallons per day per person that a person consumes. Mr. Matusik Snyder, I think, used 500 gallons. My AI review gave it between 800 and 1,000. So
Per person?
per person per day.
That's.
So
Started on around 4,000.
so I got
Per house.
what I came up with in terms of the amount of water usage was that this is going to double the water usage in the area, more or less, possibly a little less, but the other thing about water that I would bring up, and I would be happy to revisit this, is that water rights, of course, transfer as A1. You've got A1 land rights, of course, but you also have A1 water rights. And if you have that huge volume of water in an agricultural area, not going to an agricultural use, but going to a use that has been determined as compatible in A1, it is certainly not agricultural any more than a resort or a conference center is an A1 use. So I think that since every single comment that I received, and there were more than the 20 that came out today, every single comment that was negative on this, every single one mentioned water. It was the number one thing. And the water usage and the hydrology are two aspects of the same problem. But the water usage that this would be is significant. If it doubles the amount of water usage in the area, and it doubles the problems that we have seen recently with wells in the area, and weather patterns, and no rain for the next 10 days, all those kind of things, water's a big deal. And I would submit that that A1 water zoning is the same thing as A1 land zoning, and it should be considered if it's compatible. So that's my spiel on water.
I'm going to offer you up again. Mr. Reed and myself, of course, got to hear his presentation. Is there anyone else on the board that needs to hear from the educated geologist about the water situation?
I think the only thing that I could probably speak to a little bit, I assume that you all will have to deal with probably the Department of Drinking Water as opposed to the Virginia Department of Health. So they'll have a pretty large, in my experience with these types of developments, there'll be a fairly large requirement of trying to prove reservoir, whether they're gonna have to chlorinate, treat it, and the rest. Down in Danville, I had a 90-unit manufactured home park. It's another way of saying trailer park, and I maintained all 60 units with a 30-gallon-a-minute well. And so water's a crazy thing in Nelson County. As it relates to the aquifers, you can go 10 feet and have an 80-gallon-a-minute well, and then to the right it's 2. So, I built all over this place, and that is true. There are some parts of our community that are a little bit more water light. Yes, they do change. I have a rental property that has 2 wells, and every time an earthquake happens somewhere in Virginia, one well shuts down and the other well opens up. And so I turn it back on and get the other well. So I am certainly mindful of that, and I certainly do care about water quality. I grew up on a family farm that had spring water. Still drink spring water. It's a big deal to us. Preserving the foliage around that spring is a huge deal. Some things happen just naturally and springs move. And so now we're starting to move over to wells just because it's more of a conventional system. I do know that whatever they're gonna have to do to address water will most likely be a very affordable product from the Virginia Department of Drinking Water, as well as VDH. And I will say this, from a residential perspective, usually it's about 125 gallons a day for 2.5 individuals, and then a certain amount of reservoir is expected. And our service authority prices in 4,000 gallons a month for a household, no matter how many individuals is in it. So that's all I got on water.
All right. Any more questions? We'll let him say his last comments, and it sounds like we're moving on from the subject without a vote tonight.
If I could just make a statement just on water, we have lots of things to say about this project. I condensed my presentations to try to keep it in a 10-minute frame. We talked about the water at great length, but the gentleman earlier said we'd use, I think, 7,000 gallons. That was a number he came up with. And there is currently a 10,000 gallon a day system permitted by the Department of Health or Drinking Water that has been in operation for 23 years. So the number was brought up. I agree with the number that the neighbor referenced, but it matches the capacity system that's already there. Just wanted to make sure that was said.
Interesting. All right. Any more questions, comments, thoughts on this subject?
I have nothing. If it is the general consensus that we're going to continue this to a different meeting, I don't know if you need a motion to do so, or if you're just gonna let you just go ahead and assume it's.
We can just table it for now, and as long as we have consensus that we'll make sure it's an agenda item when we bring it forth for a vote.
Sure. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Our next subject is rezoning of 250339 R1 residential to M1 limited industrial to M2 industrial. We're gonna let everyone leave first.
You wanna do cleanup first? I know we're not.
No.
Was it really?
Give me, but we left it like 11 o'clock. Okay. We are going to open up the public hearing. Oh no, we want Dylan to talk to us first. I apologize.
All right. This is a request to rezone property currently being utilized for storage purposes from R1 residential and M2 and M1 light industrial to M2 industrial to allow the use to continue. Staff sent a violation notice to the property owner outlining potential corrective actions. An application requesting a rezoning of the subject properties was submitted, and the Planning Commission held a public hearing on February 25th. Planning Commission requested that staff work with the applicant to develop proffers to accompany the application. The request was again reviewed at their regular meeting on March 25th, at which they voted 5-0 to recommend approval of this rezoning to the Board of Supervisors with the proffers you see on the screen. Can you, this isn't working. Here we go, okay. So this is the cold storage area of Arrington, as you can see here. So right here, this yellow parcel, this is R1 zone. Here, this light gray, all of this is M1 light industrial, and these parcels outlined in blue here are what we're talking about. And this is the sketch submitted by the applicant that shows the red areas being outdoor storage, green areas being green space, and then the blue areas where the existing structures are to continue to be utilized for indoor storage. So the areas delineated in green on the site plan shall remain open space for a distance of 75 feet from the center of the road. Number 2, area delineated in red on this tax map parcel, the yellow one, 77A45, shall be utilized only for outdoor storage and residential uses, no other industrial uses permitted. And 3, should a dwelling be constructed within 100 feet of the property lines of this parcel, the owner shall construct a fence for screening acceptable to the planning director within 60 days of issuance of the certificate of occupancy. The owner's here. If you have any questions for him, I don't believe he might have much to add, but he is here.
Well, we'll certainly give the applicant an opportunity to say something if he wants to. Nope, he doesn't have anything. All right. We'll open up our public hearing. Conveniently, it's an empty list. Is anybody in the crowd have anything to say? We're going to close the public hearing. I have something to say. I've been taking my opportunity driving home from work through Arrington and looking. I feel that there is clearly a residential area and clearly an industrial area, and this meddles with the lines. There is a lot with a house that's had a lot of storage, and
Can we go back a slide?
I would like
Yeah, can
to
we go
split
back
them up,
one?
if that's possible. So
What is this?
So that's a residential lot,
Oh,
essentially.
an empty residential lot.
Well, there's a house,
There is
and
a
he has
house.
been, there's been
That's
storage
vacant
there,
lot.
This is
a vacant lot.
Yeah. the
Well, there is a
house
house
The
there.
house is
There's
right
a
where
house
you're,
here.
Yeah.
What's here?
A house.
A house.
Yeah.
So, and is there any screen buffer or anything between here and here?
currently, there's a line of trees right here. I'm not sure I'd call it, screening. But there's a line of planted trees right here.
And the blue is the cold storage,
Correct.
and then the railroad tracks,
Yeah. Railroad tracks right here.
and then the Volkswagen on the porch.
Right here.
Okay, gotcha. Just get my bearing.
Yeah.
Get my bearing.
You got it.
You were saying?
I think that we should consider each lot separately with this instead of a blanket rezoning. Because it's clearly had different uses in its life, but one portion of the situation is clearly part of a residential situation, if that makes sense. Separated by the road, essentially.
Yeah, I wish we could do away with that red. That's what gives me heartburn, is that part right there. If the rest of it could be, if that red could become green. But yeah.
Excuse me, can the public be open for one statement that you're missing? Quickly. I attended both meetings.
We can't have no
Oh,
comment.
yeah,
Public comment is
unfortunately,
closed.
Sorry.
That's fine.
Do you have any questions for the applicant? Do we invite him up real quick?
Anybody?
I mean, if you've got questions.
So essentially, you're just saying approve everything except for that corner.
You talking to me?
I'm talking to Jessica.
Well,
That's her district.
we did hear from one person in the public comment at the planning commission or at the public hearing, and it was the neighbor. There are plans eventually to build a house, which is where the required screening situation came from. But really, I have driven through there a dozen times since then, and I've had time to think about it, and the road has a good boundary. But it's up to the board.
So what you're saying is approves 2705 and 2731.
That's what she's saying. She wants to approve everything except for the corner. She wants that
Tax map number.
77A45. She wants that to stay
Residential.
R1. Now, I will say this, there is a caboose on that property. So if that did happen, he would be out of use and you have to move the caboose and everything, correct? I currently it's utilized for dumpster storage, essentially dumpsters that are in between. And maybe this is a great time for the applicant, maybe. Jeremy?
Yeah.
How about you come up here real quick?
I'd like to,
Yeah.
I guess I've been here for 20-some years working on these properties, clearing all these properties, renovating all the properties, kind of operating all my different businesses from these properties. I've acquired the Ford building, which was built in 1917. After I acquired the cold storage, I acquired the property that in question, maybe, I don't know, 4 or 5 years ago. I've been clearing, cleaning, restoring, renovating all these properties. I kind of feel that they're all kind of a unified property. They're right next to the railroad. It's kind of very commercial. They're surrounded by M1 or industrial aside from the residential one. But I'm kind of trying to create a commercial as is operating commercial property zone by the railroad. I don't know, I can see why, yes, that was residential, it was an abandoned house, I do want to restore it at some point. The property that's neighboring me, the only property that's neighboring me that's in the residential is totally being used in the same application that I am. There's a shipping container, there's carports, there's cars, there's all these things going on there. I do understand that maybe they will build a residence there, and I've kind of proffered and intend to build a fence there between the two, but I feel that it's all one continuous property, that I'm restoring the entire neighborhood, the entire community. I'm building the Ford building, and I mean, I'm putting untold amounts of money into these facilities and these structures tastefully, I think. And yes, I do agree that there could be a question, it is a residential lot, that's the whole reason we're here, but I'm kind of turning this into a commercial zone and trying to just build something here in Nelson County in an area that's very close to commercial property. It is commercial property. The only one isn't is just a little bit of an expansion on my commercial property. So that's just what I'm asking for. And I mean, I'm trying to do it tastefully. I'm trying to work with my neighbors to best I can. And 99% of the people around here go by, beat the horn and say, please continue doing what you're doing. I really like what you're doing. It was that property was a junkyard. It had 5 outhouses in it. It had skidder tires all over it. It was completely overgrown. I cleared that property out and turned it into a pretty piece of property. And I think I do things tastefully. I actually sold the dumpster business. I don't know, I'm moving around. I'm not always doing one thing. I don't have an intention to do any particular thing, except for I do want to turn the house back into a residence when I'm done and turn it back into green space. So I'm just trying to carry on that.
How is changing it to industrial changing your plan then?
I'm gonna have to move my caboose. Theoretically, you guys are saying that it really sucks. I just want to utilize it as storing stuff on my properties. I don't have a lot of indoor space, at nearly 80,000 square foot indoor space. I need space outside also.
Yeah.
I just in order to do operations. I'm not trying to start a sawmill or something over there or anything like that. I'm just trying to place things and temporary. They're all temporary. Everything's temporary. I mean, the caboose is on wheels, but it's not necessarily temporary. I can move it if I have to. I sure don't want to. I think it's beautiful. I put it up there for the community to see as a public piece of art and a historical thing. And I renovated the front of the Ford building. I mean, I did it tastefully like a storefront. I'm renovating all the buildings. I put in stone walls and just a lot of work I've put into that place. And I just want to have a little bit of ability to continue doing what I'm doing.
I totally agree with you. I think the way that it's been put together and what you do, I admire the work that you do.
Yeah, I try it.
Because I like that you're taking what's there and bringing in other things and the blend of the blend of art and industry is really a great thing. I think. I'm really sympathetic to your application. I think it's solid. I think it's the right thing to do.
Did you work with the neighbor next door about the vegetation screening?
No, I mean, I've talked to Charles. I didn't really realize that necessarily they were putting a house there. They say they're going to put it there. When I talked to him, he was perfectly happy with everything that's going on. Him and I do exactly the same thing. We have almost the same cars. We have shipping containers. We have, we always, it's not that different than what he's doing on that lot right now. And whether he's doing what he's doing on his lot is compliant necessarily with residential is highly questionable as well. But I'm not the person who does that. I just want to do what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And I'm happy to put a fence in between them. And like I said, honestly, my intention is to renovate the house, but I need to continue operating my businesses and trying to make money and trying to pay for all these things. And that's the way that I'm doing it right now.
And would you say that eliminating that yellow space would greatly limit and or hurt your business?
I mean, it would limit and hurt me, yes. It wouldn't kill me. I mean, moving the caboose is going to be real bad.
That'd probably kill you.
Yeah, that wouldn't make me happy, but whatever. I'll do what I have to do.
Yeah. Okay.
Is that enough?
So far.
Right, thank you.
Any other questions, concerns?
Well, yeah, not really questions, but, I want to start out by saying, that I completely respect everything that Jeremy does in the community and the fingerprint that he has, not just on this corner of Arrington, but, every time I go to Devil's Backbone, I think of Jeremy and how that structure ended up there because of work that he did and just the vision that he has. And I completely respect that. And every time I see one of those little carts, there's just, he just does cool stuff, I can't get behind this. I see this yellow and I don't think we should be turning that red. Again, I respect what he does, but he's been there 4 or 5 years. And I don't think we should be changing that yellow to red because of those 4 or 5 years. I wish there was a way we could accommodate, like you said, what's going on next door? What are they doing with storage containers, and why is this residential piece of land before us tonight and that residential piece of land is not, for example?
Oh, she has something to say.
Yeah.
To that note, I would say unmodified storage containers, they're not being used for business purpose, are not regulated by zoning. It's the business aspect of it that kicked this in to play.
Because it's part of his business.
Correct. The other consideration I would just note is that, as you're fully aware, we're going through a code update. And this area, Arrington, is designated, I believe it's village in the comp plan, which does support some level of mixed use. And knowing you're also going into a future rezoning as well. So the board can at any point initiate a rezoning as well.
Well, that's kind of jerking his chain.
We've talked about this.
So
I'm sure that's
just
fair.
curious, because all right, 2 phases to my question. Number one, if we were sitting here 5 years from now, knowing what's on paper for our zoning, what color would we be looking at?
Well, that's why I like our village overlay.
Yeah,
Gives you a little more leeway.
okay. I forgot part 2.
It's 8:30.
So, if we take no action on this rezoning, would that in any way hinder the applicant in terms of the work that he's doing, or his ability to utilize it in the way he is now?
We've allowed the applicant to continue utilizing the lot, knowing that he's going through the correct process to correct it. And if he does not get approved, then he would be required to put the property into compliance.
So if we take no action, that's his only alternative.
Take no action, vote on it in the future?
Yes,
We just
that's
say,
what he's saying.
we're not voting on this for 6 months.
Or a month or 2 months or whatever, but give us time to look into it a little more. And,
Yeah.
Yeah.
If Jeremy can continue doing what he's doing, and if we take no action, he can continue doing that, and this could be resolved at another time, at another forum, besides doing a rezoning now, because we're going to be redoing our zoning
And see,
anyway.
that's my thing, on all 4 of these, I have a real problem, and I've told you all this. I don't like special use permits. What was said earlier tonight, that, I feel that way about, it's gotta be special, not just making somebody's business plan work, no offense, but, to me, there's a little more, it needs to be a little more special. And I think the applicant would probably be better off for us to think about this a little while longer as a board, and then see how our planning and zoning work, our zoning ordinance.
So what you're
is shaping
saying,
up.
say we did do or changed it to M1, you're saying that we could come back with zoning, do a village overlay, and say, just kidding, it's back to residential.
I think it's a little more complex.
Yeah,
than that.
would
But I mean,
the
like,
use be
that's really-
would the use be grandfathered?
The use is not grandfathered.
It's not, okay.
Not in this case.
Just wild.
Yeah.
I think we need to tell Dylan, we need to think about this a little while longer.
So once we redo our zoning, we'll be wasting our time of passing this tonight, is what you're saying.
Maybe.
Possibly.
It depends. I don't know. I mean, what my imagination of what he's trying to accomplish, I mean, I think it might still be a special thing. I don't know what you have the cold storage across the street, so that's always been a industrial type use. I mean, it's not out of character. You had the Ford building, you got, I don't know what the grass lot area is between the Ford and there, but I will say this, I do love what he does over there. I've had the opportunity to tour that facility several different times. I want to support our local business folks and those who are doing really niche stuff. So,
But at the same time, we have to understand the people that live in the yellow too.
I mean, sure. I think from the interactions I've had, because I know some of the neighbors around there, and I've interacted with Ms. Thompson on this, and though I don't know specifically or where her mindset is. She wanted a tree line of sorts or something of that nature. But beyond that, I mean, a lot of the neighbors in there support Jeremy and all of his efforts. So to me, I understand if the board wants to sit here and we consider what that future yellow spot corner is gonna be. Sure, but I think what Jeremy's doing, what he's done for that village is something I continue want to support, and I want to mitigate all risk and make sure that I'm not putting him in peril, with any motions or anything. So I'm not prepared to make a motion if I don't have the votes for anything. So
I think we need to think about this one.
And I can consult with Phil Payne on what implications that has on the property in the meantime. And I will say, we've met with Berkeley Group staff on preliminary what's going to be discussed at our work session next Wednesday. And this was a study area for the preliminary mapping. So there might be.
I would like to have that
Yeah,
information.
that'd be fair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Ay, ay, ay. So taking no action.
We're doing more research.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I meant tonight.
Are they gonna take action on Jeremy though and make him come into compliance, or are you gonna give him a grace period?
I have to consult with our county attorney on that aspect of it.
We're still working on it, so I think you're
Yeah.
paused for now.
Okay.
That's how I see it.
Me too.
Yeah.
Okay.
What a night. Moving on, special
Can
use
we pick an
permit.
easy one, like a coffee shop?
260024 restaurant, coffee shop, and A1 agricultural district.
All right, this is a request for a special use permit for a mobile coffee trailer located at Rockfish Fire and Rescue. The applicants have entered into a lease agreement for this proposal. The planning commission held a public hearing at their meeting in February, at which concerns were raised regarding traffic and safety impacts, including the flow of traffic on site. The planning commission deferred the application to their March meeting to allow staff to work with the applicants on a revised site plan. At their meeting on March 25th, planning commission voted 5-0 to recommend approval of SUP 260-024 with the following conditions. That the site for the mobile trailer be set back at least 200 feet from the edge of the right-of-way of Route 151 that's increased from their original proposal. Staff consulted with VDOT about access to the property, and interestingly enough, VDOT indicated that they would review and approve site circulation signage and pavement markings in the parking lot on the site. The shop shall not operate on election days. Parking areas shall remain free and clear. The restaurant use shall be limited to mobile food trailers only, and there shall be no flag signage along Route 151. So it's kind of a funky concept, but essentially you turn in here, cross over, loop back around.
Why are we limiting his, like a sign out front?
Zoning.
So,
I
in
understand like a
our,
flashing sign, but like a
Flag.
little flag out there.
yeah, in our draft zoning ordinance, the Route 151 overlay regulates things like increased setback signage, access management. So we put that in there, as a measure of good faith.
Cause there's
That you
several
wouldn't see
signs
flag
come through
signage.
151 like Paulie's big, I'm not throwing him under the bus, but
But we're in the process of, what you're saying, if I hear you correctly, is we're in the process of
apply to
changing that to
new
limit that moving
rules.
forward. So you're already putting in new zoning
They can't have
regulations
open sign?
into this one, because that's where we're headed.
how about an open sign?
Like an open.
I'm just saying, I'm not offering commentary, I'm just offering interpretation.
That is correct, and that said, the board does not have to, you know, you can make any revisions to the conditions. This was just what was recommended by the planning commission.
I mean, a business needs to be able to say their work open for business.
I agree.
Well, then let's redo the zoning.
Because hell,
ordinance
there's
that
already a
we're
sign
writing
out
now.
front. Fire department's got a big sign out
I
front.
mean,
We are a year away from zoning being done.
yeah, we're only a year away. We shouldn't be approving things that are in contradiction to the zoning ordinance we're working on. That's all I'm saying. My question is, why are we doing design crossroads crisscross? What is that, 20? No, that's not 20.
I'm glad someone else has an issue.
Why, I don't understand why people can't come in this way and go out that way. What's the purpose of the crisscross?
So this side right here is the only area that's able to be used. So the window is on this side of the trailer.
Oh, I see. The trailer is the black, okay.
Yep.
I got you.
So you're coming in, looping around. These are supposed to be cones.
I can't believe VDOT said yes, but
Loop around. And so doing it this way prevents stacking.
Has VDOT said yes?
VDOT has said they will review.
Review it
site
after, yeah,
circulation.
they come after us. So they might say no after all.
And I did send this drawing to VDOT.
But they haven't given you an answer.
Correct.
Correct.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, the point might be mute.
You think it's something, you don't see them in there for a truck and tractor pull.
Yes, it's sad. You'll see 8,000 cars.
Yeah. I don't have, I mean,
David Greaves might be here if you have,
I'd love to interject.
if you have
because it-
specific questions, applicants here too.
yeah. Oh, good. Yeah, bring him up. I didn't know what he said.
Come on.
Yeah, come on.
So this came about, because the planning commission had issues with stacking. And it was under the assumption that we were gonna have 20, 30 cars at one time. I don't believe that's gonna be the case.
Thank you, Seven, Bro.
Exactly. This was a compromise. I was willing to compromise on a lot of things to be able to have, the ability to have a drive-through. This is the whole point of this. I mean, they didn't want me to have a drive-through. I wanted to be able to freely flow traffic into the parking lot. So this is not correct. What this creates is gonna be, if there's any call, the big deal was emergency calls. People are gonna get backed up. No one understands that there's a siren coming and, there's gonna be a big traffic jam in the parking lot. So we were talking, me and Dylan were talking, and she was like, look, why don't we, bring it down here and then bring it around? And, the concern from one of the planning is like, what is this? Well, this actually happens here. Okay, so people come down and then there's a sign that tells you to move here, a U-turn sign to come here, and then you come up through here, and then you move out. So the flow of traffic is not, the crisscross is not here. It's back here in this section to where there's no parking. Nobody's really ever here unless there's an event, which we're not going to be open. This allows free flow of emergency services, in and out, in a, efficient manner. So this section is not exactly accurate. So the way you would assume people would come down and, the driver's side, you can't get to the coffee trailer there. Well, they're gonna come down and then they're gonna turn around and then, go. So my suggestion was, a cone here with an arrow pointing this way. You just come down, there's a cone here, a cone here, a cone here. There's a U-turn sign, you turn around, you go up, and on the back of that sign, you come out and you flow right on out. This is the biggest parking lot on 151. I mean, I don't anticipate, I would love to have 20 cars. I would love it. If it is, that's gonna be a good thing, but I can't imagine, stacking. I mean, if you can see right here, that's a huge rig, several cars, that, I can't imagine it being more than that. But, I'd love it if it did happen. Another thing, we spent a lot of time on the traffic pattern. We agreed to move the trailer down. I wanted it to be 140 feet from 151, and it's in a nice little spot right next to the trees. And, I've agreed to everything. As far as the signage, I'd really love to be able to have an open sign, some way to be able to convey that we're open. I mean, I'm gonna push it with social media, but I'm willing to bend on a lot of things because, I want the drive-through option. It has to be that way because I can't have people out of their cars walking around. I'd rather have them in coffee people are religious people. And when they find something they like, they come there, and it's not going to take long for everybody to understand that you come in, you go around, you come up to the drive-through, and you exit out. We have the full support of the fire and the rescue department. The chief was here. He attended the last commission meeting. He expressed his extreme agreement about our partnership. We've entered in a tentative lease agreement with the fire and rescue. We pay a monthly lease, well, assuming approval from the board and the planning commission, a lease fee every month. We also are going to do a roundup program exclusively for the fire and rescue department. So everybody that comes in our trailer is going to have the opportunity to round up a sale, and they're going to support the fire and rescue. I mean, that's just, for us, we really wanted to give back to the community, and that was a way for us to do it. We're not going to do it for Habitat of Humanity. We're not doing it for someone else. It is in perpetuity. As long as we're there, we're rounding up for the fire and rescue department. And, it could be thousands of dollars. We don't know. I know that, without a doubt, there's going to be several thousand in lease expenses, and sky's the limit. We don't know how much this would be, but, everyone's excited about it. Like I said, lastly, the planning commission voted 5-0, to move this along. And, I'm hoping that the board feels the same way. And if anyone has any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
All right, we're gonna do our public hearing.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, we're gonna open the public hearing. No one has signed up. Anyone? Yes, sir.
Point out two things. One.
Can you state your
VDOT
name and where
I'm
you?
sorry, Clay Stewart, 1073 South Howes Allen Road. VDOT having dealt with myself and my business on town 29, just won't have the A or nay of how this flows. One. Two is comparing this to equivalent businesses that I frequent a lot. Joe Beans, one at the airport, the one in Madison Heights, looking at the traffic patterns there in their busiest times. Airport, you might see 6 cars, 3 on each side. And the one in Madison Heights, I've never seen more than 1. So I think the concerns of there being 7, 8 cars is not likely. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we're gonna close the public hearing. Questions, comments, concerns?
I think it's a huge benefit and a direct for our fire department.
I want to just compliment, businesses need to be able to throw an open sign
It
up.
doesn't say no signage. It says no flag. That means like the big banners like you have at Woodridge, the flags that they have,
Like at Dickey Brothers, like. at
Yeah,
Bonnie's
that's what it
Picnic.
says. It does not say no signage, correct?
No flag
Ding, ding,
signage.
So what signage can he do?
Don't ask those questions. Just, it says what he can't do. Then
What's
he
wrong
can
with-
do the other.
What's wrong with flag signage?
Because
I'm
it's
just
in
saying.
our current overlay of 151
Why you gotta
logo on the flag
complicate stuff?
signage.
Okay.
So our current zoning ordinance is still in effect, so he would be able to apply for and receive a permit for signage. The intent is, as we progress through our code update, that we are comparing projects and proposals to what is being proposed in the draft ordinance, so that we can kind of flush some of those things out. So like the original proposal, we had no drive-through because that was not permitted in the corridor, which is 200 feet. So we push it back, we can have the drive-through. And we recall flag signage being one of the things along Route 151 that was not seen favorably.
I mean, it ain't dumb. I mean, flag signage, let me tell you, it's,
Yeah.
every business ever has them.
No, not every business,
lot
but
of 'em
we're
do.
moving on.
All right, well, let's
He
make
can
some
have
motions.
signage.
Yeah.
You can have sign.
All right,
Okay.
I'll entertain a motion.
I'd like to say something
Okay.
first. I hate to be a Debbie Downer about this, but I can't conceive of having a drive-through business and emergency vehicles using the same entrance where there's going to be cross traffic under any circumstances. I think it's a no-brainer that this is really, no offense to the applicant, because I know you tried to get a hold of me and I didn't respond. And the reason I didn't is because I think it's a terrible idea.
You can
And-
communicate and talk, that's how things get
I
sorted.
I know. I was pretty busy this morning. Trust me, coming up to this.
I'll
But-
just note that David Graves, the fire chief at this location, he attended the last planning commission meeting and spoke to that.
I
Yeah,
wish you could zoom out on that map because there are 4 50,000-gallon propane tanks sitting in the back from Tiger and Foster Fuel, where we have, it's a storage facility for propane tank trucks to come in and fill up and pull out. Which one do you think is more dangerous?
Well, and I can picture a very similar situation in Lynchburg where you've got them, they're right at the same basic entrance. And also, this is Rockfish Volunteer Fire Department. This is in the city of Lynchburg, you know. There's not that much, you know, it's volunteer fire department, and it's a big space. I support it. I would like to add one additional condition, number 6, that if they add a second location, that the first place they look at is the Piney River Volunteer Fire Department.
I have a question for Dylan.
well,
Is that no? Okay, yeah. Sounds good. Let's go.
all right, let's go ahead and make a motion, Madam Chair.
I'm ready for a
Cameron's your
motion.
district.
All right, Madam Chair, I like to move that we approve special use permit SUP number 260024.
We have a motion.
With the conditions that the planning commission approved.
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Roll call.
All right. Mr. Reed,
no.
Mr. Parr,
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford.
Yes.
Mr. Linehan.
Yes.
Dr. Layton.
Yes.
All right, now so will the Piney River location have flag signage?
It'll have an entrance and an exit completely separate.
A flag.
Much better
Flag
ingress and
signage?
egress. Yes. And walking distance to my house.
Okay.
I can get coffee in my pajamas.
I think Tippet's gonna get some flag signs.
I'll direct traffic.
151.
That's okay, I'm just gonna get some.
Okay, special use permit 250263, campground in A1 agricultural district.
This is a request for a special use permit for a campground use located on Morse Lane. At their meeting on March 25th, Planning Commission held a public hearing, subsequently voted 4-1 to recommend approval with a lot of conditions. So here is a site layout, concept layout. So we've got 3 phases. Phase 1, including 16 pads for RVs with a dock station at the front, recycling, electric. Phase 2, we've got another 18 sites. Then phase 3, tents only. Okay. So here's the landfill. property down there. So we might need to reword number 1, cause it, including the 10 tent sites in phase 3, it's 44 total. Okay. Screening along Morse Lane, acceptable to planning director, shall be shown on the final site plan. No open fires or burning shall be permitted. Lighting shall be dark sky compliant, directional and glare shielded to prevent light pollution on adjoining properties and roadways. Bulk solid waste receptacle shall be provided, maintained in a clean condition, and enclosed on all 4 sides by fence, wall, landscaping, or other screening as approved. Refuse shall be collected and transported at least once weekly. Minimum 10% of the total acreage shall be reserved as common open space and recreation facilities. Parking area, interior roads, and access to individual sites shall be comprised at minimum all-weather gravel surface. Final site plan shall be developed in general conformance with the concept plan submitted with the SUP application package. There shall be an on-site manager whose contact information shall be provided to the Planning and Zoning Department. There shall be no development or sites located within 1,000 feet of the bank of Browns Creek. A vegetative buffer shall be required along the length of the property on Browns Creek. There shall be no generators permitted on the site, and no amplified music is permitted. Quiet hours shall be from 10 p.m. to 7 a.m. A lot of these conditions were generated from our draft ordinance update related to campgrounds.
I just have one question on camping pier, because it came up the other day. Who goes camping and doesn't have a campfire?
He can speak to that. He spoke to what type of burning equipment he would allow on the property. But
Marshmallows,
he
hot
has
dogs, you
agreed
know?
to all of these conditions. And he's here. He's still hanging out.
Do we want to hear from the applicant?
Sure.
If you want to come speak to this, you are welcome.
I want to speak to this.
Okay.
Applicant first, and then we'll open the public hearing.
Hi, I'm Tim Masters. I live in Pennsylvania. Had the land since 1985. I listened for quite a while because we've had a long evening, and I understand that the requirements by the commission with the intended use is primarily your objective. Mine is primarily ROI and what I do. So a capital investment of this magnitude has to work. Some of the requirements that I conceded to were purposeful because I think we can work around that. I want to use containable skid units that we're going to purchase, and they're going to be in conformity on those other lots. Parking is only going to be for overnighters. The one thing that I wanted to talk down with, I'd like to talk about generators a little bit because I'm not sure a camper can come to a location without a generator. Now, we're working on power right now with Virginia Power. I've been talking to them, so we may solve that problem pretty quick. But intended use, it meets those requirements. We're going to be more than 1,000 yards from the creek, from the tracks. Most of the burden is on us as it relates to the containability of the sewage, black water, gray water. We meet those requirements. We won't have a drain field. It'll get pumped. We'll have to find local providers for that. Basically, a Verbo type setup. These skids are about $65,000 to $90,000 a piece. They get located along those spots. The 10 tent lots can be X'd, taken off because they won't generate enough ROI. The units themselves for overnighters, hopefully $225 to $275 a night. The demographics, socioeconomics, I think your numbers came in around 90.5 million tourism in 2025. The numbers are down a little bit right this year. All that money's going to the north side. We had a discussion at the commission meeting. It's just the intended use is that I get to use it as opposed to 40 trucks and trash and line it up and pushing dogs from one road across the property to the other road, that we utilize it for our tax purposes that we're paying for, and that it enhance the community and bring that revenue dollar into the Blue Mountain Brewery and bring some of this stuff on the south side of 29. So that's the intended use that we have for it, and more than happy to meet those requirements through these containable environmental units. They're gonna look very nice and meet the landscape. So that's what I got.
So what you're saying is you're not proposing a campground where I can pull in my 43-foot toy hauler and set up for the weekend?
In the first video, yes, not on the road, right there at the entrance.
Okay,
Up
phase
the-
one.
Yes.
Mhm.
Well, not all phase one, but because there's a portion of phase one that goes up the road, that will have the skid units. Most of the parking will be easy egress and ingress off of the road, off of Morse Lane. So that way there's accessibility to park, come and go. Yes, you can do that for the weekend.
Okay, and then what are these other things? The
So
skid units?
they're environmentally, well, basically they have their own containable water. They have their own containable sewage. They get pumped and, and then you haul. They're like little cabins, eco cabins.
Kind of like tiny houses, sort of?
Yeah,
Kind of like a tiny house?
yes. So it's gonna be to create, the economic demographic that I wanna attract is gonna enhance the visibility of the property, number one. And it also is gonna bring the kind of revenue to the local providers. I'm kinda getting tired of eating Vito's, however, I do love their pizza.
Shall we do our public hearing?
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right, we're gonna open up our public hearing for special use permit 250263. Jeremy Hester.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jeremy Hester, 748 Walker's Mountain Road. I represent the Property Owners Association. I'm the president for the association. So I speak on behalf of the majority of our members that live on our mountain. For me, I cannot see this working out in general. I've heard of the glamping stuff, but are these campers and glampers ready to hear a train 3 to 4 times a night and get so aggravated they just complain about everything and go home? Where are these kids going to play at? We all know kids are inquisitive. Well, what's right next to this campground? A train track. Where are kids drawn to? Train tracks and water. So how many people are going to go past the train tracks, get down, kids go down to the river? You got a number of issues, I think, that would come out of it. They want to be able to put a camping area in the southern area of Nelson County to enjoy all the fine wineries and breweries in the northern end of Nelson County, just to, whether you're taking a limousine or you think you can handle your booze and want to drive all the way back to the southern end. You're creating a very problematic instance for all EMS and fire. Okay, I'm not sure what kind of traffic plan was done in order to maneuver campers or whatnot in and out of Morris Lane. But as a firefighter driving a truck in and out on numerous fires on Morris Lane, it's difficult. You have tractor trailers and people, it's a big thoroughfare and people don't care. They're not going to slow down. Okay, people don't slow down for the fire trucks coming out of Livingston Department. They're not going to stop for campers and stuff like that. We've had numerous tractor trailer accidents right there at the shed place. I mean, I see a repetitive thing over and over with problems in this area. I think a lot of my neighbors, and I can't wait to hear what a lot of them have to say also, but I think we need to keep it rural. I don't mind campers, but they had a campsite down at Lake Nelson, and I guess that disbanded or got torn apart and Department of Wildland took over, but you have all this stuff now that's just overgrown and it looks like garbage. People go down there to fish, but there's not a whole lot to do. You know, the activities in the Southern District just don't exist. So for the premise of glamping or camping, I just don't think this is the location or spot. Thank you for your time.
Mr. Stewart.
Can I pass this up, please? The main purpose in there is there's a chart that's got the rock formation underneath this campground. My name's Clay Stewart. I live at 1073 South Bowes Allen Road. My property of 70 acres borders Walker's Mountain, where I hear the dogs and the trains and everything. Well, I really want to concentrate on, because I think there's enough people who are going to bullet point things that the Planning Commission did not hear. So far, you've heard a lot that the Planning Commission didn't hear, just from the first person that spoke during the public. That was not there. I was there. He was there. It was not a lot of participation. So you've heard a lot already, and you're going to hear a lot more. Why this is not a good deal. For me, it's environmental. The environmental risk is critical at this location. This site sits on a steep slope above Brown Creek, a tributary that flows to the Tye River, which is impaired. Installing a commercial sewer pumping system here is an ecological gamble. It happens across this state, and you can look up the records, and you will find, even as recent as September, of large spills or overfill. They have alarms, but if there's not management there to take care of it, and I have not heard that from any of the meetings on this yet. As a matter of fact, he had no manager when he stood up the first time. He had a manager at the end of the planning meeting. This site tees 112 work hours. I've had 10 businesses in my life. 112 man hours are required to run a campsite of this size. Not one person. I want to also mention that the chart that's in there is the rock underneath here. It's a type of aquifer rock. Everything flows through it. I've got 3 wells and 3 properties, 1,000 to 2,000, 5,000 feet from this property. Every single one of them are brown. They're deep wells, but they get brown after every rain. Common in our area because of this rock. I also want to mention the access road that's narrow, not built for the traffic that is going to be on it. These diesel trucks pulling 40-foot trailers or cars even. It is now, as you know, has industrial traffic every day, and that's going to be a problem. I'll also real quickly say that this is a failed business plan from the start. Between the barking of the animal shelter, the industrial noise from starting at 8 a.m., odors from the transfer station, the freight train shaking the ground 1,000 feet away. These are 1-star campgrounds. Proof, look up campgrounds, railroads, 1 star. An example I have there in the paper, the New River Junction. Thank you.
I'm gonna say it wrong. Heather Deco.
My name is Heather Deco. I live on 1923 Wilson Lane in McLean, Virginia. My mom spoke first. They have property on Walker's Mountain Road, and I often visit there, and I will inherit that land. So it's really important for me that I came down tonight to talk to you. I'm here tonight on behalf of my family and our neighbors to respectfully urge this board to deny special use permit 250263 for the Morse Lane Campground. Browns Creek runs directly through our Walker's Mountain subdivision, and that creek flows directly into the Tye River less than a mile downstream. The Tye River is already listed on Virginia's Section 303D impaired waters list for fecal coliform and E. coli, meaning it is already failing state water quality standards today before a single RV pulls into this proposed campground site. The Tye and the Piney River have never fully recovered from the devastation of Hurricane Camille, which killed over 1 million fish. Our regional fishermen know this. Our rivers are stressed to their limit. Now this proposal asks the board to approve a commercial scale septic system to be built on an uphill slope of fractured cataclastic rock. This is not standard soil. Wastewater will move through it directly toward Browns Creek, directly towards the Tide River. The science here is not complicated and the risk is not acceptable. This campground also proposes a commercial well, which will place additional pressure on an already low water table shared by every family on Walker's Mountain Road. I want to be direct about something procedural. As of tonight, there are no engineering plans on file for this project. The board is being asked to approve a special use permit for a commercial campground with permanent glamping structures, RV pads, and hundreds to thousands of visitors per year without a single engineering drawing showing how the septic, drainage, or water systems will actually function on this terrain. This is not due diligence, it is irresponsible and reckless. This is a 3-phase project that will not stay small. The Tide River cannot absorb more fecal contamination. Browns Creek cannot absorb a flood of foot traffic polluting the ecosystem. Our water table cannot absorb a commercial well, and our community cannot absorb the noise, pollution, trespassing, and traffic that comes with commercial campground on a rural residential road. Rule violations are inevitable and will be continual and potentially catastrophic for the residents of Nelson County. It is very wishful thinking to think that campers will not build open fires and bonfires at this site. Up to 90% of wildfires in the United States are human caused. Due to very dry conditions, the wildfire risk is very high here in Nelson County. Already in 2026, we have had multiple brush fires on Afton Mountain and other areas of the county that threaten property and our homes. If you vote yes tonight, that is an irreversible decision made without proper engineering review on already impaired waterways in a community that will bear every consequence. I urge you to please vote no on special use permit 250263. Thank you.
Wanda Presley.
Thank you. My name is Wanda Presley, and I live at 228 Morse Lane, Arrington, Virginia. My family and I live and cared for the land in this area for over 125 years. I share that with you because Morse Lane is not just a line in the zoning map. Morris Lane reflects the rural character, history, and sense of community that Nelson County strategical plan says it's trying to protect. I want to be clear that I am not opposed to thoughtful growth or economical development, but I do not believe this proposal is the right fit for our location. The statistic planning designates Arrington as a rural village and says these areas should function as community focal map points, take cue from their historical qualities, and preserve a strong sense of place. The proposal does not do that. It is designed to discern transient visitors, not the people who live here. It introduces destination-style activity. It begins a shift, a quiet, family-oriented road into something that functions more like a tourism corridor. This is a place where my children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren have been able to safely enjoy the outdoors and grow up connected to this land. My concern is that the level of activity and traffic that comes with this type of development will change that in a very real way, not just for my family, but for others who live on this road. Finally, I want to address the idea that this is a low-pack project. The proposal itself describes attracting travelers from across the region, increasing overnight stays, and supporting tourism activity. That is not a small or incidental use. It is a business designed to bring more people and more traffic into an area without true regard for the families on Morris Lane.
30 seconds.
The strategic plan also points to where the kind of growth is more appropriate. For example, it notes Colleen is a preferable for new development for a variety of reasons, rather than locations that may impact rural character and resources. The reinforcement that the idea that not all growth belongs in every place. It reinforces the idea that protecting an area like Morris Lane was part of the county's intent approach. Thank you.
That was everyone that had signed up. Is there anyone else that would like to speak?
I didn't sign up, but I'll let speak.
Come on. Just state your name and address, please.
My name is David Morris. I live at 650 Morris Lane, straight across from that lane. That lane is we already done had mistakes by letting the lane fill it. And we got, I have a health problem with smell, sense, so I'm under doctor care for that. But anyway, and there's a lot of noise. At night, there's a lot of noise. But I'm used to the training at night. Because I'm 70 years old. I've been here all my life. But my brother and I, we're my brothers. We had an issue with when my daddy, that the county had the property. Because we wanted to farm it. You know, that created a lot of things. So that property had to be a farm lane. I don't see it nowhere. And she had said most of what needs to be said, my cousin. So I don't, and I got kids. I got 2 little grandkids and 3 girls. And I don't think it's right for that environment. You know, I like peace in my life. You know, I raised her to be a peaceful man and like to keep it that way. So they have some come in to disturb and create a problem. That's all I got to say. Thank you.
Anyone else? All right, we're gonna end the public hearing. Admittedly, I saw both presentations from this fellow. They're very different, wildly different. The first time he came to the planning commission, it was more of I've been hunting this land, love this land. I want other people to enjoy it, and it very much seemed like a business return on investment sort of speech tonight. So that didn't bring me too much joy. But anyway. That's my piece on that. Any questions, comments?
You know, it's interesting that the environmental impacts were pretty clearly presented by those who were opposing this, and there wasn't any previous assessment of that or consideration of it by the applicant. That's a big concern to me because the geology as it is, the environment as it is something that should be really front and center for anyone that's applying to do really anything in the county. And the absence of concern about those things, I think, does not reflect well on the applicant. Like you said, the emphasis on the business plan and, from businesses that I've run and been a part of, does not seem like a very solid business plan, either for the community or for the applicant. And I feel like we'd be saving the applicant significant heartburn and significant problems down the line if we did not approve this.
Well, of course, this is the first time I got the presentation. I speaking from kind of the 29 corridor, Livingston, trying to see some level of economic development on this side to take some of the burdens off of the northern district and address other pieces. I mean, I would say if I were to vote in the affirmative, I understand the Virginia Department of Health concerns with sanitation. And one of those conditions should be approval of sanitary operations by Virginia Department of Health, which I imagine they'd have to do by default. Can you speak to that, Dylan?
Yeah, so the Virginia Department of Health, for any campground, 3 sites or more,
Yeah.
has a whole set of regulations for that. If this were to get approved, a site plan would be required to be reviewed by VDOT, Health Department, Erosion and Sediment Control, Department of Environmental Quality, if they're going over an acre of disturbance. So that's when a lot of that engineering aspects would kick in. Now, if you want environmental reviews, those can be included as conditions.
Like an environmental level 1 kind of thing, or it's, I mean, that they're gonna look for a gas station, laundromat.
As far as the other aspects, like I said, site plan goes through VDOT, Health Department, Erosion Control, any other applicable departments, Fire and Rescue.
Yeah, I mean, as I look at these, I mean, that would be the only condition that I would add is, you know, condition of the Virginia Department of Health satisfaction, just so that everybody understands that facilities have to be approved by the Department of Health.
And I do believe a pump and haul is proposed, which also has to go to the board for approval, for separate approval.
Oh, really?
Mhm. That's correct.
I believe so.
Yeah.
And we had to do that for Blue Mountain.
Yes, we hold the permit, and anybody that wants to use it has to apply.
And if we vote no, what happens on the pump and haul? I mean, that's kind of, I don't want to vote on this twice. Can I talk to the applicant?
Absolutely.
All right, boss man. All right, Mr. Master, right?
Right.
All right. You come on up. So as it relates to your sanitary facilities, I don't know if Dylan could explain that you'd have to come back to us again to get approval for your pump and haul.
Yeah, I subdivided 24 lots off the adjoining property with Massey Saunders years ago, spent about $30,000 on that project, sold it to Piedmont Housing Authority. I understand all the environmental issues, and I understand the ROI really well. I don't need to dump the money here. I want to use the property because I thought that's what we were going to discuss, the proper intended use, not to work my ROI, whether I would fail or succeed. None of that really is the concern. It's just, I understand the environmental.
Yeah. So, and I think, one, I'm not discussing with you on this one, but to the board, I mean, obviously, it's not, though we're interested in businesses that operate and are successful, of course we are, we're not necessarily in the business of making sure that they will survive.
Yeah, we're not financial advisors here.
In that, but as it relates to this property, would you be open to a sanitary facility that's not a pump and haul? Because you're gonna have to do the same process.
Listen, we're talking about a capital investment anywhere from 300,000 to $1.6 million infrastructure. So the numbers have to work. The property is not being valuable or used in any way. I'm open to all the engineering and been in contact with all the. I understand that the only way to spend that kind of money is to first get the approval.
Sure.
So why spend? I was going to get Massey to go do all the layouts and because I spent a lot of money with him in the past, but I need to get this part, and then if we could, like I think I heard earlier, it could get knocked down, just like the coffee shop. You know, we could get killed in engineering.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, but all right, that's all the questions I have for you. Thank you, sir. But yeah, I mean, you know, the pump and haul, I kind of look at that. I would encourage the applicant to probably go find alternatives to the pump and haul, if at all possible, because pump and haul, as we've seen with other facilities, is not always It is necessary. There have been moments where we've, as a board, had to approve it to make sure businesses were operational, but for longevity purposes. I imagine there should be a product out there that can satisfy the needs of those minimal septic requirements. 34 sites isn't that hard to engineer, in my opinion. I would say that as I look at this, I want to support the 29 corridor. I really want to support any opportunity we can create for populations to support Livingston as we eyeball economic development in that area. But I would add, again, in my mind, if I was in the affirmative, the Virginia Department of Health, satisfactory, engineering, all that.
So the public comment at the planning commission meeting, there was a lot of conjecture about the runoff, because this is cut over land, and just flash flooding and things like that. I mean, I'm surprised I didn't hear it tonight, because it was almost heard as much as the water situation at Monroe. I mean, it was impressively spoken about. I'm surprised that was not brought up today. I'm surprised the only really mitigation thing that's brought up is some shrubbery next to the creek. And that is something that Wheeler's Cove, Walker's Mountain, not Wheeler's Cove, deals with regularly. And so, I don't know. I kind of wish that had been addressed more, but the health department or the thing is logical as well, but this isn't exactly land use. I have concerns about people like coming and enjoying a place next to the railroad track too. I mean, and next to the landfill. It just doesn't seem inviting and not really a campground. I would want to say, woo, Nelson County. But that's life. Any other comments?
It's your district. What's your thoughts?
Honestly, I was leaning one way when I came in and leaning a different way now, so. What's the pleasure of the board?
I'd be willing to make a motion.
I'm ready to hear one.
I would move that we deny special use permit 250263 campground in A1 in Morris Lane.
So this is a deny, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So Karen, when you get a deny, it means yes means deny, no means don't deny.
This is what we've talked about, negative
Double
motions.
negatives.
I was correct at the very first meeting.
We've had to teach me.
Well, we have a motion.
We saved the test for the end
All
of the
right,
meeting.
I will let someone else second it.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion? Are we gonna have to roll call vote it?
I don't think you need.
Yeah, we're gonna roll call vote this.
Mr. Reed?
Yes.
Mr. Park?
Yes.
Mr. Rutherford?
No.
Mr. Lenahan?
No.
Dr. Lee?
Yes.
Here we go. What time is it?
Madam Chair, any further business?
Oh shit, sorry. All right, any other business?
No, I'm done.
Thursday at 7.
Okay,
Madam Chair, I move we continue this meeting to Thursday at 7.
all right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? All right.